Welcome to another 21 Hats Dashboard. I'm Loren Feldman. I'm here with Gene Marks to talk about issues we think business owners should be following this week. Welcome, Gene.
Hello, Loren. Great to speak with you.
Great to have you here. As always, you've been writing and talking about issues that matter to business owners. I want to start with a piece you wrote fairly recently about online reviews. You kind of suggested that owners should be fighting back more, which kind of runs in the face of conventional wisdom. What prompted you to write about this? What are you thinking?
Yeah, you know what? I wrote this piece for The Guardian mainly because it was there's been stories of some business owners getting bad reviews, and I linked to a few of them in the piece where they're kind of fighting back. You know, there's like an owner of a daycare center in California who literally filed defamation lawsuits against customers who left bad reviews. I found,
that doesn't sound like a good idea. Do you?
Well, we'll get to that. Okay. There's the owner of a sushi restaurant in Colorado who she claps back at her unhappy customers. There's a veterinarian and an owner of a gun range and an appliance repair store who also got into, gave it back. There's a guy who runs a construction business in Canada who won a $90,000 defamation lawsuit against somebody who posted a bad, negative review. And I'm like, good for those guys. The common wisdom is always like, you politely apologize and post what you're going to do to, resolve the problem. And, listen, these are people that are like passionate about their businesses, and, they get somebody that leaves, an inflammatory review, and they're basically like, you know what, fuck you. I run like a good business here, and I'm going to, I'm not going to just take it, or I'm not going to, say, oh, thanks for your feedback. People can get pretty harsh online, and it's not fair. Business owners work pretty damn hard in their companies. And, when people come back and leave unconstructive reviews, and make those kinds of things, I don't know. They just, I think there's some occasion for a business owner to fight back, and I appreciate the ones that did that.
Well, that kind of leads to my next question, which is: are you drawing a distinction between types of reviews? I mean, sometimes the businesses are just wrong, and are you encouraging people to fight back even if the customer has a good argument?
No, not at all. I mean, if a customer has a legit argument or a legit thing, by all means, we're reasonable people here. You can agree with that and say what you're doing and say, yeah, okay, that was a good point. But I mentioned in the article that, again, this is in The Guardian. Yelp reported they saw 161% spike in negative restaurant reviews. They removed over 15,000 bad user reviews, all related to COVID restrictions. These are people that are like giving bad reviews for restaurants and businesses because they had very tight COVID restrictions, whatever they might be. You know what I mean?
And they're just trying to survive in the most difficult circumstances.
Yeah, who the hell does that? I mean, these are small businesses. They're trying to have a safe workplace for their employees and for their customers. They're getting no guidance from the government. They're trying to figure out what's best. And like what? You're going to go online and then make some harsh review on them because they require you to wear a mask when you go in and order. I mean, it's just, that's not fair. It's just not a cool thing to do. And I'm glad when I see business owners say, hey, that's not cool, and we're trying our best here, and don't shit on us online. It's just not a fair thing to do. And I think other customers and people that are on those sites appreciate that. I know I do.
Again, I feel like there's some distinctions to be drawn. I mean, the review systems online, there's so many ways to game the system. You don't know when people, it can be coming from competitors. There are all sorts of problems that need to be addressed one way or another. While my heart is with you on, long-suffering business owners having to deal with outrageous reviews, I just wonder if it's in their interest to file a defamation suit.
Yeah, I mean, if it's that big a deal, then the answer is yeah. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't. It wouldn't. If I was a customer of a restaurant that did that for a customer, it wouldn't stop me from attending the restaurant. I'm like, all right, this guy probably a good reason to do that. So good for him, and and let him do it.
I guess, if he won, if the business owner won, it suggests that it wasn't just a question of taste. Like I didn't like the flavor on the chicken, or something. There has to be something beyond that for it to be a dispute worthy of a win in court, I would think.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think that I don't know. I mean, like, first of all, I don't even know if customers know that there's a defamation lawsuit going on anyway. It's not like it's that public knowledge. You know what I
Well,
mean?
it's
So,
those things can attract attention, and I think you don't want to do it unless you're comfortable with the idea that it could end up on the front page of the newspaper.
yeah,
And
yeah.
nobody wants to be fighting with their customers. Obviously, it's got to be pretty egregious.
Right. No, nobody wants to be in that situation, but for the people that do choose to do that, the business owners, like I said, I don't have an issue with that, and that was the whole point of the column, was just to say, hey, listen, if you feel like you're in the right, don't be afraid to fight. What's really weird, Corin? Like I had, Loren, the my sites on Google. And for like a couple of years, I got like no reviews for my business. I don't know, because it's just a B2B business, so we're not consumer facing. But I had like 3 reviews or 4 reviews that had been on there for like a year or two, and one of them was a terrible review. Like, this client hates my guts, and we won't go into the reason why. Okay, but he's not a fan, and he went and he left like this 1-star review and like shitted over my business. I can't tell you how many times. I mean, easily like 5, 10 times, somewhere in that range. Prospective clients would bring that up in a conversation. It's like, hey, I saw this really bad review for your company, and what was that all about? You know what I mean? Like,
Sure.
those are,
oh, absolutely.
look at that, and I'm always like, really? I mean, like, it's like one guy who left a bad review. There were 4 reviews, and we have hundreds of clients, and that's what you're focusing on. People focus on that stuff.
Well, that's why one of the standard pieces of advice that is given is to encourage your happy customers to leave reviews as well.
Right. And you know what I did? Finally, I heard it so much. I got that kind of feel. And, it never lost me any deals, but it was just a question that got raised that I didn't really want to have to deal with. So in the end, what I did is I responded back to the person on Google saying, we have a difference of opinion. Here it is. And let's just leave it at that. And then I had somebody in my office reach out to like 50 of our customers and say, can you please leave a Google review? And sure enough, we now have like a bunch of Google reviews that are all like 5-star, and it just sort of buried his bad review, which is good. But the point of the story is that people look at these reviews,
For sure.
I mean, they really do, and they can have an impact on your business. And do you think somebody left an unfair review? Don't let it just sit there, respond. And if you disagree, go ahead, go to, fight with them. I mean, to me, it shows that you care.
The social media wars can get so nasty, and I just worry about somebody getting caught up in something like that. It can get out of hand very quickly. But if somebody has really wronged you, you're absolutely right to suggest taking action. Let's move on. Next topic. Last week you wrote a column with. I'm sorry, I'm moving to the wrong one too quickly. Wait a second. Here we are. We just got a pretty healthy GDP report showing significant growth in the third quarter. A lot of people were surprised that the economy seemed to be doing as well as those numbers suggested. You wrote that we should ignore those numbers. Why?
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you the reason why. As you know, I write on this stuff and I speak to a lot of industry associations, and there's the government puts out a lot of numbers that the media loves to report on. They love to report on, and they have methodologies for doing their surveys and their estimates. But that GD report that you just mentioned, Loren, which was a good report, it's going to be revised. Like, they get revised like 5 or 6 times over the next 3 months. It might be revised up, might be revised down. We're really not going to know about it or report about it. I mean, you can find out, but the media doesn't cover that stuff. The government itself does a lot.
Well, they do. It's just buried.
It's buried. It doesn't get the real news. It's just the initial release.
And oftentimes the movement isn't significant. It's usually correct directionally, isn't it?
It depends. It really does depend. And a lot of the data that the government reports, I mean, they do a lot of, it's an estimate that's being done by the government. And again, they're really polling and surveying a lot of customers, and a lot of companies to do this stuff. And it is think about it. I mean, I know a lot of my clients, a lot of business owners, I mean, they don't get really called by the government, or if they do, they don't have time to respond. I don't know all the methodology behind that. So fine, it might be fine. It might be fine, but I don't put as much weight behind the government numbers as I do behind numbers that come from actual organizations, from actual customers. And I'll give you a few examples,
Please do.
Yeah, when it comes to payroll, for example, the Department of Labor will tell us, like they told us back on Friday, that the unemployment rate is, it rose a couple points, but all these, new jobs were created, and that's fine. I like to look at like the payroll companies, like ADP and Paychex are the two biggest payroll companies in the country, and both companies every month report their payroll employment data and wage data as well. That is not an estimate. It's not a survey. It is coming directly from their customer database, like real hard numbers. So when ADP and Paychex tells me that jobs are being added at a significant level, I pay attention to that more than what the government is estimating or surveying, because that's like real stuff going on. I'll give you another example. Just 2 weeks ago, the banks, the nation's biggest banks, released earnings. This is off of their customer data. So I look at it and I say, like, those earnings themselves that were released by the banks are like Wells Fargo and JP Morgan, both CEOs. Both said that consumer spending seems pretty strong. Their credit card spending is strong, and they're not having any, loan issues right now for loan defaults. This is like Jamie Dimon, who is not exactly an optimist about the economy. Even he admitted that, that those numbers are doing pretty good. So I look at that. I look at associations that are deeply involved with their members, like the National Retail Federation. I like to look at earnings from big companies. Like, to me, the best indicator of retail sales is what Walmart, Target, and Amazon are telling me, as well as FedEx. Those are real numbers. They're not estimates. And I think that those are the kinds of things that we should be getting more attention, and we should be paying more attention to those numbers versus, the sort of the numbers that the government themselves comes out. I'm not saying to ignore the government numbers, but I would weight them less than what's coming from actual companies that have actual customers that they're working with.
Do you feel the same way about sentiment surveys, like consumer sentiment or small business confidence, that kind of thing?
Fucking hate these surveys. I really do. And I get them sent to me. You must get the same thing, right? Every other week, I get these surveys that are sent to me. And it's always, the best one that's out there is the NFIB. So I'm not going to say anything bad. They've been doing this survey for like 40 years, and they are surveying their members, their member base. But then you get a lot of bozo surveys from companies that have their own agendas. I don't even know what their methodology is. We surveyed 300 small business owners, and we conclude that 70% of small businesses are going to go bankrupt next year. I literally get those kinds of surveys. Or that business owners are not feeling optimistic about the future. It's just bullshit to me. Like, I'm just sick of those surveys, and I never report on them because I think they're just a waste of time. The only one that I like, again, is the NFIB's survey. Is the most legitimate one. So the answer is no. I hate those surveys. They suck.
All right, last topic. Last week you wrote a column with suggestions for how business owners can minimize their taxes before the year runs out. Can you give us some examples?
Yes, and I'm glad that you asked, because this is really important. We're having this conversation in early November, guys, so you get some time to move. So let me give you some. So this is in the Philly Inquirer last week, so you can check it out yourself. Obviously, organize your files. Obviously, meet with your accountant. There's no, that's common sense. Buy equipment now. Buy furniture and fixtures. We're going to slow down certain industries, certain businesses really struggling with cash. Find those guys. Buy some of their equipment if they're selling it. You can buy it used. You can buy it new. Put it into service by the end of the year. You can get up to $1.1 million of deductions for those equipment. This includes autos as well. So again, you don't even have to pay for it. Finance it and get it into service. And then you can pay for it in 2023 if you defer your payments. You still get the deduction this year as long as you put it into service, right? So that's number one. Number two, pay out bonuses this year. If you had a lot of companies, you and I have talked about this, Loren, about the recession. I don't know. Most of my clients had pretty good years this year. They're concerned about 2023, but 2022 wasn't so bad. So they're looking at tax bills this year. And I keep telling them, say, listen, you can give it to the government or you can give it to your employees. I mean, we're all talking about retaining our employees and trying to, attract new ones to our businesses. So take a look at the bonuses that you pay before the end of the year and, give more to your employees. Let them take advantage of it rather than, and you'll show less profits. You can take a deduction for it. And that's definitely helpful. Optimize your retirement plans. You could put away up to like 20,500 individually or up to 40,500 if you're, both company match and your employee match, assuming you're in compliance with the IRS rules. And one more, Loren. Everybody's had bad years with their stocks because the markets are down like 20%. If you've got some losing stocks, sell them this year. Sell them for a loss. You can offset that loss against any capital gains that you have. And an additional $3,000 of that loss can go against your ordinary income. And you might be holding on to some stock that you're like, oh, I kind of like this stock. And I think, even though they've had a bad year, it's going to go up in the future. Fine, sell it, wait 30 days to be in compliance, and then buy it back again. So that way you can get the tax benefit of doing that. And then you can still hold on to trust me when I tell you, it ain't going to go up that much in the next 30 days. So, make those moves, talk to your accountant now, don't do this on December 31st, I guess is the message.
You're that rare breed, Gene. You're both a CPA and a business owner. I'm curious, to what extent do you think business owners can fully rely on their accountant to know what's up, what's available? To what extent should they be doing their own research?
Look at you asking the great questions. It is a great question. I love my profession. There are some people that are CPAs that are really great and on top of their game. And I recommend those guys when people ask, because there are people out there really good. There are some CPAs that just suck. I mean, they're just compliant. They're form fillers. They're overloaded with tax returns that they fill out. And they're really bad at doing proactive stuff with their clients. And the clients think that they're fine because their CPA is looking out for them. When I'm telling you, there's a chance your CPA is not looking after you. So couple of bits of advice, okay? I'm sure your accountant is a nice person and maybe they're a competent person. They just might be a lousy salesperson or customer service person. So it's your job as their client to pick up the phone and say to them, get out here. Let me share you my year-to-date financials and let's talk about things I can be doing now to say, don't wait for your CPA to call you because you're going to be waiting a long time.
But how do you know if they know what they're doing? I mean, I'm sure there are business owners who are sometimes tempted to take their results to multiple accountants and say, what do you think?
And as you should, because that happens to me all the time. It happens to a lot of people in the profession. It is not uncommon for a business owner to take their tax returns every few years to another accountant and say, hey, man, here's my tax return. Take a look at it. Tell me what you can do. Can you do anything better? Good CPAs will do that without any charges and will come back to you with suggestions and recommendations. And if they're good enough and you like what they're saying, you might wind up switching accountants. So, it's laziness to just use the same accountant every year. To think that they know everything because they don't know everything. So it's your job to push. Now, final thing is this, Loren, like I'm out here writing stuff like that. Kelly Erb at Forbes, she writes stuff like this. Barbara Weltman, she's out there writing stuff like this. There are people out there in the media that really do report on latest tax stuff. And you should find a couple people out there to follow and, check in with them once in a while, read their stuff and, keep up on it. I mean, it's not a big deal, right? It's only like 20 to 5% of your income, Yeah, it might be worth like a couple hours of your time a year to stay up to date on new tax stuff so that you can bring it up to your CPA or a prospective CPA.
Along those lines, I was going to ask you, you in your piece referred to tax payments as perhaps a business owner's, I think you call it most significant expense. In most cases, it's probably not their biggest expense. What did you mean by most significant?
Well, I mean, I group significant expenses, your payroll, your obviously direct cost of materials, different businesses have their expenses, but I mean, I don't know, Loren, if you net $100,000 a year and you're giving away 25 grand of it, to the government, for a business that size, that's a pretty significant expense, So
you said most significant, Gene.
Yeah, it's among the most significant.
Okay.
Among the most significant. So it is.
I will accept that.
And I got news to you. It's not just federal taxes either. You have to add on state taxes. God forbid if you live in California, I don't even know if you have any profits left after paying your taxes.
That's another podcast. Last question, Gene. Are you working on anything you can tell us about that we can look for this coming week?
This week actually is going to be very localized. I'm going to be working on a piece about starting up a business in New Jersey, specifically for the Inquirer. I'm also going to be writing a piece for The Hill, like sort of recapping the election that's happening tomorrow. So we will, on Thursday, I'll write a piece just saying what the election, how that will impact small businesses, and then. Finally, I mean, I'm my technology roundup that I do every week for Forbes. I'll have good 5 tech stories that will impact small businesses that happen this week. So we'll see what happens.
Well, as someone who's trying to build a business in New Jersey, I will look forward to all of those stories.
Yes. Now there's some unique things to know, Loren. Unique things.
I'm looking forward to
Springsteen or Tony Soprano, but other unique things.
Gene Marks is a CPA who writes weekly on small business for The Guardian, The Hill, The Philadelphia Inquirer, The Washington Times, Forbes, and Entrepreneur. You can also hear him on ABC Radio's Eye on the World with John Batchelor. Gene hosts 2 small business podcasts with Paychex Corporation and The Hartford. Thank you, Gene.
Thank you, Loren. We'll talk to you next week.
Always a pleasure. Have a great week, everyone.